Hi, I'm Caroline Brown. Welcome to the Rengen Roundtable. On today's episode, we have Iestin Lewis, Peter James, Darren Sheward, Steve Sherry, and John Hall. So guys, welcome.
Hey, Caroline.
Hey, if you guys can just introduce who you are. So we'll start with Iestin.
Okay, afternoon everyone. My name is Iestin Lewis. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Rengen Developments. I look after the strategic direction of the business from a high level, where the business is going, how we get there, and generally sort of set the strategy for how we're going to develop on a longer term basis.
And Pete?
Yeah, afternoon guys. I'm Pete James. I'm the Managing Director of Rengen, and effectively my role is to oversee day-to-day operations within the business and make sure that we deliver the various projects we get involved in.
Hey, Darren?
Hi. Yeah, so Darren Sheward. I'm the Land Director at Rengen, and I guess my role is to feed the machine, feed the beast. So I'm out sourcing stock, finding sites, negotiating, purchasing, working with the guys on the funding side of it as best I can, and then if there's a planning requirement, delivering the planning, and I also get involved at the tail end in terms if we have as part of the exit strategy.
Yeah, I'm Steve Sherry, the Construction Director for Rengen. I basically take over the delivery of the projects after Darren, look after the construction teams, look after the consultant teams, and make sure that we deliver the projects at the time when we want them to fall.
Okay. Hey, John?
Hi, I'm John Hall. I'm the Investment Director, and I'm tasked with looking at new ways how we can attract money into the business to fund some of Darren's projects. I'm the latest recruit. I've only been here a few months, learning lots about the business. Really, really exciting. Looking forward to it.
Nice. So let's take it back a bit because it is your 15-year anniversary. So when you were thinking of a company and you started this 15 years ago, what were you thinking?
I was thinking primarily I was going to pay my mortgage. Actually, it's I started the company in December.
Always a good thing to think about.
I started the business in December 2007, right in the midst of the economic crash. I lost my job. The market was in turmoil. There weren't any prospects of getting a job with anybody else. So it was either start your own company or not do very much. So it was very much out of necessity, rather than a sort of planned direction of travel. Interestingly, I started the business as a consultancy service, a sort of multidisciplinary. And by that I mean that anything that came through the door I said I could do it, and then worked out how to do it afterwards. So it was first few years were very much sort of on the front end of delivery, which is my background in any case as a chartered engineer. We didn't start development until a number of years after the inception of the business, probably 2010-11. So I think first principles were how do I pay myself, how do I look after the house and put food on the table. It wasn't a planned business. There was certainly no business plan other than get up early in the morning, work hard, and go to bed shattered. Actually, from what I can remember. But I mean, it's been a pretty incredible journey since then. It's 15 years of growth. If I look at what we started doing and where we are now, it's quite astonishing to see, how the business has developed and the various sort of facets the business has developed into. So very much a journey, and it's a journey with which other people have sort of come on with me.
Nice. So Pete, talk to me about your journey with the business, and because you started quite early on.
Yeah, I did, Caroline. I suppose arguably I've been there in sort of one role or another right from the very start, albeit at that time because Iestin and I had known each other for a number of years at that point. And by the way, I wasn't responsible for him having to find a new job. just make that clear. But Iestin and I had known each other for a number of years, and when he first started the business, I was running a family office back in Cardiff, and I was in a fortunate position, I suppose, of being able to offer someone I trusted to deliver projects the opportunity to deliver some projects for me, for the business I then worked for, which I think probably helped Yest get the business up and running to begin with. And, you know, our relationship has sort of developed on from there, because we originally were working together on development projects, and even though Yest had started the business as a consultancy business, I suppose we were always destined to, at some point, to get involved in the development side of things, which we did. And, you know, 2010 onwards, that's when that part of the business, if you like, came alive. And I then came on board in a full-time capacity a couple of years later, and I've been here ever since.
Yeah,
I must be doing something okay, because he still speaks to me on a daily basis.
I managed to keep on speaking for that period. I'm just thinking back. I mean, I started working with Pete very much on a sort of technical delivery back in 2003-4.
Yeah.
So this is actually 15 years for the business, but sort of much longer than that as far as Pete and I's relationship have gone back. And we've pretty much been involved with projects on a day-to-day communication level since that point. Actually, I can't think that we haven't over that period we haven't been working together.
No,
so it's it's a very strong one-to-one relationship, which I think is essential, particularly in this line of work, particularly in project development. That you have to have that strong relationship between chief exec and MD, if you like. That has got to be a seamless connection. Otherwise, the rest of the business doesn't operate properly. So that's something that doesn't happen overnight. You can't go out to the market and generate that relationship. It's got to develop over an extended period, which is what it has done.
Yeah, and you've known some of these guys, actually, all these guys, for quite a long time. So Darren, when did you become involved in Rengen?
Oh, I joined just over a year ago, so I'm a relatively new kid on the block as well. But I've known Pete and Yes probably for the best part of 10 years, because I've had a sort of 35-year career so far in the Southwest, and a lot of that has been consulting. So I've had some client-side work as well. So I've worked with the guys as consultant for probably at least 7 or 8 years on and off. So yes, I knew I was laying myself in for when I joined them.
I think it's worth saying though, Dan, that's very much a sort of personal relationship before we joined. It's no mistake that you've joined the business. You know, we've been talking for quite some time about you joining the company.
That's true. Yeah.
So this isn't just a sort of CV type scenario where we've asked someone to send something in. This has been very much a direct approach, and it's been on that sort of interpersonal level from day one, really.
And from my perspective, it was really exciting to come back into a sort of proper client side role, and I'd already seen some of the work that Rengen had been involved with over the last 4 or 5 years. It was right in my sweet spot, and I wasn't really prepared for how fast the business pedals. You know, so it was really some of the comments you've made. You know, about being fleet of foot and reacting to what comes through the door,
as well as working harder.
It will be definitely working harder than I probably worked for. I had some boyish features, a year ago. So working for Rengen comes at a cost, but it's been okay in the round.
Yeah. And John, actually, you mentioned that you have been looking at Rengen for the last couple of years, but you and Yestin have a past yourselves. What is your history?
Well, the link is rugby. I think there is a common link around the table here, which is about trusting relationships. And so when Yestin and I met, it was at Bath Rugby. We were in the middle of a huge success story through Bath Rugby, through their sort of halcyon days in the 80s. Yestin joined. I was already very established. I think I became your captain in the end. Yep. And Yestin was a forgive me talking about you, but he was a young man. He was at university. He lived in a flat which I'm not allowed to call the name here, but it wasn't the cleanest of flats. Yestin was.
I think your man must be the engineer there, John. I seem to remember.
John, I've got to jump in and say he wasn't a Rengen flat.
Anyway, we were really lucky because we played in this team. It was a really successful team. Yestin was part of that success, I was part of that success. We had an amazing time for 3 or 4 years at the club, winning everything, Bath Rugby. And then the professional game came along, and that's when everyone went their different ways. And obviously, Iestyn went into was already established, with the line of business he was doing, and soon to start up the new business. And I went off into professional coaching within the game. But yeah, and I can't stress too much that common thread. I'm a new kid on the block here, and I've picked it out straight away that there is massive trust between all the directors and the relationship with the staff, and that is something that, if I had to put sort of my finger on the best teams that I've been involved in with rugby and in business for that matter, there's a common thread which is trust throughout those businesses.
And Steve, what about you?
Relationship goes back probably 15 years to projects that when I was working in London, working with big development companies. Iesis Consult, who was part of what Iestyn had set up, were the PQS and PM practice that we worked with a lot of the time. So yeah, I had a lot. We done maybe 5 or 6 jobs together over the years, and I guess 18 months ago I'd made a decision to change my lifestyle and move to the southwest, and actually contacted Iestyn about starting up with him because I knew and I trusted him. And it goes back to what John was saying, really. It's trust in relationships and people that you know that you were interested in working with.
I think it's worth saying, Steve, as well, those jobs we worked on in Zone 1, I mean, not pretty non-standard projects, to be quite honest.
Yeah. And
without a relationship, okay, we were on the other side of the table from you, but without that relationship, you don't get through those projects.
No.
They were successful projects. I know for the developer that we delivered them for, they were one of the most successful projects that they delivered in Zone 1,
yeah,
but hugely complicated. And without that relationship and professional working environment, you don't get through projects like that, not in central London.
No, and I think that is the construction and development industry. It's all about relationships of people. Whilst you are delivering a product, if you don't have that relationship with people and able to communicate with them and get on with them, you won't deliver anything.
No.
So, and I think that's what you need.
Well, interesting point that came out earlier was about talking about selecting somebody on their CV, and whilst CVs are really important, those relationships and how you react with people and the feel you have for people is absolutely paramount, because you can have the best CV in the world, if you can't get on with people, then there's no.
John, it's vital, for a business of this size.
Yeah.
If the chemistry amongst the senior team is not right,
yeah, then
the business isn't going very far. And Iestyn touched on something important there, which Steve also amplified. We've always been involved in interesting, challenging projects, and where projects are interesting and challenging, if you don't have a tight team who get on with each other, understand each other's strengths, you don't deliver them successfully. And I think we have been successful in our delivery over that period.
I mean, I see CV in a slightly different format. CV traditionally, I think people would look at it as a static document which comes in as a typed format. But I see CVs more as a dynamic document that extends over a time period. You can't know somebody or whether they're going to fit into the team, or how good they are, whether they live up to the qualifications they've got based on a piece of paper. It's a dynamic document which develops over a number of years, and only at that point you understand somebody's CV, if you like, or track record, and your ability to work with those people. And I think for any business, if you like, I know it's. As a company, I've said it myself, you have to recruit because you need staff, but you do get to the point through the passage of time where you can select the people you want to come as part of the team based on the CV you've seen over a time-lapse period, rather than just going out to the market.
I think that's absolutely right. But again, the key element, for me at least, has been recruiting the right people, which is why we've got Darren, Steve and John sitting around the table today, because appointing people, capable people into the right role in the business is vital for his health and growth. And I think that's what we've done. I won't say we've got it 100% right along the way, but I think where we've got to now is a very comfortable place, because we've got very capable individuals who are fulfilling very important roles in the business.
Yeah. And so you started the company in a recession, and I don't want to call it a recession now, but the market is quite contentious at the moment. So what do you think the differences are now for the company where it is going into this time period?
Well, I think you've gone through the pain barrier, if you like. So the pain barrier is setting up a company from scratch in 2008 when you don't have any resource. We had a small box room that couldn't really stand up in the box room, actually. You don't have any backers. You don't have people to do things. You're doing it all yourself whilst trying to navigate yourself through a horrendous financial recession. That's the hard yards, if you like. So when you bring the people on, like Pete was a hugely important part of the business when Pete came on board, because Pete had been through a number of those type of scenarios. You build, it's not just knowledge but resilience to understand what you're going to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I say to people within the company, and elsewhere, the quicker you normalise stress, the happier you're going to be in the working environment, because working under pressure is going to be a day-to-day occurrence for you. There's no point pretending it's not going to be, because it is going to be. Sometimes that stress is less, sometimes it's more. But in the financial market we're in, it is difficult. It does provide stress and it does provide challenges. So, but what we've got to fall back on is what we did back in 2008. We've kept the team together, and that team's moved forward together. All we've done is kept the knowledge and added to that.
And we've built on the team. Yeah. I suppose, Caroline, for me at least, the big difference is, yes, the company was born in a recession, and arguably we're in another recession. So what's different? Well, something which is very different is we've now got 15 years more experience to enable us to navigate our way through what are going to be some difficult waters. But we've also strengthened the team by bringing on board these guys as well, who also have things that they can add to what we were doing instinctively. But I think the combined team now is in a much stronger position to deal with challenges than arguably we would have been 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it was very tough 15 years ago. And look, we talk about downturn and recessions, and they are difficult to navigate through, and people are feeling extremely uncomfortable, like all recessions. But what it does throw up is, for example, from a land perspective, it throws up opportunity. Now, in 2008, we were able to capture some of those opportunities, thankfully, for the funding provided by Hodge Bank. We went to see Hodge Bank in 2010 and said, there's some sites without funding or with planning, but we can't get funding, if you like, from elsewhere. Would you fund these sites? And thankfully, they stepped up and funded those sites. They were pretty much the only show in town from our perspective, and very thankful to Jonathan and Dave Austin and the team down there for seeing the opportunity and seeing what we can do with it. We're in a better position now. We've got many funders, good funders, that work with us on a very close basis and want to support the business. And again, we're very thankful for that. But what it does do, Darren, it provides opportunity in this market.
Yeah, and I think the same. Yes, it's the market is challenging at the moment, but the same principles apply in this market, and it's slightly more amplified. So the key thing is always buying sensibly on the way in, making sure you understand your market and you're working in a market you're comfortable in geographically and sector-wise, and making sure you draw on all the experience from the rest of the team to ensure that we can deliver the projects in a timely manner and delivering the right level of profitability. So the same principles always apply. It's about buying well. So there's no pressure in terms of my perspective.
I think flipping it on its head and having the positives on this is really important. And 15 years of experience now, using that experience, being in a position where you can react to these to the marketplace. And one thing I've been amazed at over the last 2 years, I've been sort of following the progress of the company and being able to see all these new sort of projects coming on. But with any a company that's growing, there's always these stress points. And what you've got to be in a position to use what you think your best place in the market is, and what your USP. I hate that abbreviation, but what is your USP in the marketplace? And having, you know, the last couple of months, I've realised what that is with Rengen, and being able to react to the situation, and therefore, sort of my role, sort of coming in and, you know, and helping with the investment, having the funds available, you know, it may be equity alongside debt, and being able to react to that situation and buy these opportunities at you know, at the right time at the right price is really key to that.
And John, that's where your role within the business is vital, because of the nature of the business, our biggest challenge is always going to be access to funds. As Iestyn has touched on there, we do have, you know, a number of friends in the industry, sort of funders we've used for very many years. Iestyn mentioned Hodge Bank, there's Close Brothers, there's ICG, there's Zorin Finance, or Buthnot, and a number of others. But, you know, sorry?
I said Atelier.
Yeah, Atelier, Lend Invest. But, you know, we constantly need access to, you know, further sources of funding, whereas, you know, your role as investment director is vital in, you know, how we sort of access that funding going forward.
So where is your sweet spot in terms of land and developments, not just for you guys, but for your funders as well?
Look, I think where we've set ourselves up in the market is probably above the sort of builder level, if you like, the self-build level, and underneath the PLC level. So we're very much SME development, if you like, and we've pitched ourselves in that market. I think the key thing we haven't done is we've not pigeonholed ourselves into any one part of the sector or in the development sector. So we haven't said, you know, we're a residential developer, we're not student developer, not shed developer, if you like. What we've branded ourselves as is an SME developer. And what we've tried to do when we've recruited people like Darren and Steve and John, and obviously Pete's come on early doors, is get people with that broad experience of the market, not just people that are specialists in one particular part of it. So, and I think the industry has hugely changed actually over the last 10 or 15 years, certainly since we started this business, and it's changed hugely since I started my career in 94, 95. You know, the development world has become much more specialist in certain areas, so if people do one thing, they only do that one thing. So what we've tried to do is be developers, so to spot an opportunity, if we can fund that opportunity, we can understand the risk and we can deliver it, and we understand the market in which we operate in, we will go and develop that particular area. And I think what that has done is opened up the market for us. So we've not restricted ourselves as far as development types are concerned. And I think that's I wouldn't say it's a unique position, because there are other very good developers out there, but we've not limited our ability to go and deliver product. And that was a very specific decision from day one. And I'm sure people will back this up, both from a consultancy perspective and from a development perspective, that we've not limited the way we've operated. So if the market has moved away from a certain sector, you know, we were able to quickly map into another sector, if you like, both from a delivery perspective and from a development perspective.
You said one very important word there, yes, which was delivery, which of course is where Steve's role comes in. You know, from, you know, once once Darren has found the project, has had the idea with it, I've sorted out some of the legal side of things. Of course, we then hand it over to Steve, and it's Steve's job then to get it out of the ground and actually turn it into a living, breathing thing.
And
which
I think what you're saying there about this being an SME and being flexible enough not to be stuck into one individual sector makes it an interesting delivery mechanism, because we're not doing the same thing repeat every time, and it's the same process. That can become quite a stale environment to work in. So actually for people working in this environment, it's great, because you are looking at every job and it's unique, and how are we delivering this, what are we doing differently here, and we're understanding those things.
So I guess over the past, say, 3 years, it's been quite challenging in terms of construction and delivery, access to materials and costs going up. So how have you dealt with that and dealt with the change of that?
I think the key word to that is flexibility, and being able to be flexible in how you manage your procurement process, in terms of, are you going to deliver this yourself? Are you going to get a contractor involved? Is a contractors available? Do we split it up and give part of the development to one bigger contractor, and then pick off the fit out elements, say, ourselves? So we've been flexible in that, and as I've come on board, we've brought in new people to help manage that and give us that ability to actually deliver things, self-deliver, certainly fit out, and more into the whole main contract element of a development process.
Yeah, and have you seen a lot of change, would you say, over the last few years?
I think we're developing our over the industry is developing our sort of modern methods of construction, I can see, and we are changing. What used to be a traditional concrete frame build box that we would build has changed over the years, and we are now developing more. I see CLT is coming more and more in timber frames. We're doing timber frames, we're doing light steel frames. So our actual structural philosophies are changing as we develop. We're also developing more in BIM technology, and we're using that more and more throughout the construction process, and that's a good thing, because realistically we can actually then procure our materials a lot further in advance and have them ready, and then ready to bring to site to actually deliver it quicker.
Yeah.
I think, Steve, as well, to add to that, let's go back beyond the 3 years, if you like, where the supply chain issues, began to kick in. If we go back 5 years,
Yeah.
the world was a different place. It's not just the industry, the world was completely different to what it was. I remember nice sitting down at the end of sort of 18, I think it was, and writing a plan for the company moving forward, which very quickly got binned because the world changed fundamentally. So not only have we had to look at different ways of constructing and reacting to supply chain and subcontractors, midway through builds, because the market has moved away in some areas, we've had to change direction on what we're actually delivering. So and again it comes down to the personnel you've got employed and their ability to think. If you like, that has allowed us to adapt projects to move with the market, not just deliver something just because we set out to do that.
Yeah.
And that, what that would have done is crystallise the position, which perhaps wasn't there. So we have used the experience, we've used the delivery knowledge, if you like, to help us move with the market, and it's been a very rapid movement. But it's understanding moving in the market to take a project somewhere that is going to be more viable than perhaps where it was when we started out 5 years ago.
I think that flexibility, and I think we've even seen it in the recent times when you see things changing with interest rates and stuff like that, how that has changed the private residential market.
Massively.
We have to be flexible to that.
Even halfway through build, changing construction format,
Exactly.
and saying, we can't keep on going down this road
Yeah.
because we simply can't bring this in on price. We need to change construction methodology.
Yeah.
And again, it comes back to the CV. Very difficult to have that relationship, if you like, and move something very quickly if you don't have that trust relationship with somebody where you can say, look, we do have to move this. We can't stay where we are. It might be uncomfortable. People might not like it very much, but we've got to change direction.
Yeah, but it's also having the expertise within the business to recognise when you need to change something and then react quickly to it. And if there's one thing we are good at doing is reacting to situations and making quick decisions. And it's vital in what we do. So.
Yeah, I think that comes down to it's a very short chain of command as far as making the decisions concerned.
Yeah.
The decision making is going to be, we need to change direction and make some changes.
Yeah.
And that's the decision.
And I think you also have to give the benefit. What we actually have is the supply chain can actually be flexible with us, and I think that's very key to what we do when we make these decisions. You have got the opportunity to ring up that supply chain contractor, say, look, we want to change this. Can you do it? And in most of the instances, they will jump to you and help you deliver that.
Well, a lot of those people have been with us since 2009
exactly the same
and 10.
thing.
It's the same people. If you go onto the sites now, to a large extent, it's the same people that you would have seen in 2009 and 10. So it's it does help having that supply chain relationship, not just tendering every single job that comes through the door, which there's a place for that undoubtedly within the market.
Yeah.
But if you've got that support of the supply chain, you can do things that other people can't necessarily do.
I think if you
and
want
do it quickly.
I think if you want that consistent delivery, you do need to rely upon that supply chain throughout.
Yeah.
And that we've done that.
Yeah.
And it's also testimony to the relationship you guys have with the funders, that actually if we're looking at a change of direction, that we always get the support. And
I think it goes back to one of the early things I said there, Darren, was, I like to think that our funders trust us. They understand we know what we're doing. And, if we are deciding to change direction, there is a very good reason why we are looking to change that direction. And in fairness, they've consistently worked with us when that has happened.
Well, it's an interesting comparison. We talked about recession in 2007-8 and recession 22-23, if you like. There is a different attitude in the funding sector between those two times. So there was a very different attitude, right or wrong. You can take a pick if you like as to what happened in 2007-8 in certain areas. The market now, I think, recognises it has to be flexible as far as the funding of the projects are concerned as well. If the market moves, it's not necessarily the developer's fault, if you like. And there is a more proactive interaction-driven approach with the funding market to work with people. We certainly see that. I think the funders we work with, you probably couldn't get a better set of people to work with. As far as the relationships we've got, when we started, I'm not sure whether that type of flexibility existed in the market. It was probably something generated within the banking sector itself. It was probably a more risk-driven approach, if you like, to dealing with problems, which was more binary. But I think the banking world has moved away from the sort of binary approach because it doesn't work. If a project goes wrong, it's certainly much better to work with the developer to find a way through it, rather than, as I said, crystallise an issue and it's either one or a zero. And the world doesn't work like that. The development world doesn't work like that, and the world in general doesn't work like that. It's this many more different levels than a one or a zero.
So I want to talk a little bit about stress, because that's come up a lot over the last few years, and it can affect people very differently. So how do you guys each deal with stress on a day-to-day basis in the working environment?
Should I kick that off?
Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
The old grey went around the table. And look, I think it's vitally important. Yes, stress, it's inbuilt into what we do, I guess, but I think you've got to find a way of balancing it. So within the business, we do work very hard, but we also have a bit of fun as well. And when you're having fun, the stress disappears. So you've got to find that sort of balance between constantly driving the business forward to also enjoying the rewards from what you're doing. And as I say, we do have a bit of fun as a business as well, and hopefully we share some of that fun with the people we work with. So
it's a great not just from a delivery end, we have a great time from a social perspective. I think everybody gets on. There's no politics in the business. So and that helps enormously as far as managing stress is concerned, because all you're doing is managing project stress rather than team dynamic stress. We don't have that. It's a very well bedded down team, and we get on with one another. So
you mentioned team a couple of times there. I'm sure John will jump in on a similar theme, because it is a tight team. Hopefully we can recognise when somebody is maybe struggling a little bit with something or other, which as a bunch of individuals, I think we then all try to assist with, because this is all about what we do as a team, not about what we do as individuals. And John, I'm sure that from your past,
it's a question. It's a really good question, how you deal with it. I guess from my playing days, stress used to come on during sort of vital times. You get to a cup final, you get to a semi-final or something, and stress used to come on. And really, what you do, you've just said it. You look to your team. You look, as a group of people. Your team comes together and you support each other. And I think, in the rugby environment I was in, we used to have some pretty brutal conversations with one another.
Yeah.
But nobody took it personally. So I'm not suggesting that we need to have those type of conversations, but it's important that you can have those conversations, and if you can talk to people and you've got an environment that you can talk to people, then that's one of the ways that stress can relieve itself. And I've seen that through businesses, and the businesses that cannot deal with stress individuals can't deal with the stress within the business are the ones that don't have those channels of communication. So what it comes back to is those relationships that you have in each layer of the company.
I was a bit worried then, John. I thought you'd sort of bugged yesterday my conversations because the type of difficult conversation that you've mentioned there, yesterday I probably have 3 times a day. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's just business related. It's not personal.
But Peter, sorry, the conversations we were having were far more serious.
I think stress to a large extent with people is generated by not knowing or having the uncertainty, if you like, and I think you can't manage uncertainty because you don't know what's coming downstream.
I think one of the things that I would say is that your stress is far better if it's shared, and when we work in silos and we're working remotely, I find that certainly from a personal perspective and probably from working in a team, it's far better to be working together and in an open environment. Having an open office here helps. You all sitting in the same area, you're talking together, you actually bounce ideas. You really, if you've got a problem, you can deal with it straight away. Whereas I think this working from home can struggle with. Yes, it's great in some parts of the day, but you need to have that time with your team to actually understand where their stresses are and what we can do to help them.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've always noticed is that all good teams, whether they be a sports team, whether they be a more traditional business team, they have a group of leaders within them that will communicate really effectively amongst each other, and they will support each other incredibly well, and understand that if somebody's having a difficult time within that senior leadership team, they can actually step in and support them. So I think that is another really important thing within a team. It's almost like a skeleton of management that goes through the backbone of management that goes through any team, and to have those, you've got to have leaders in each position.
I think Pete and I, as Pete just said, we spend a huge amount of time kicking back and forth how we're going to deal with issues, if you like, and how we're going to manage our way through perceived problems. Certainly from my end, talking about the different scenarios, whether that be 2 scenarios or 10 scenarios, Pete and I spend a huge amount of time talking through those scenarios, so we try to cover as best we can all the different outcomes of a problem. Once you understand the different outcomes and the directions it might take and understand that, from my end, that certainly alleviates a certain amount of stress because you've got a way forward.
Yeah, I think it is hugely important, yes, that, whilst we always prefer route A, on, I think, just about every one of our projects.
They were once, Pete, didn't they?
Yeah, I was going to say, but we always, because of the way we throw things around inside the business, there will always be a route B or a route C, which will also work. May not work quite as well as route A, but it takes some of the stress away to know, well, if I can't do that, I can do this, and it still works. And that scenario of sort of discussing things, and the leadership bit which John touched on, and working together as teams and not working in silos is just for me, it's a fundamental way to deal with the stress within the business. Otherwise, you could end up with some problems. Fortunately, we don't. No, I don't think, at least.
There's multi levels of that conversation as well. As John said, I've been sat in the changing room with John, having some pretty blunt conversations, both before and after the match, actually. So it's, you couldn't have those conversations with everybody. No. So you have to temper the level of that communication and understand the level at which somebody can operate as far as stress is concerned, and then managing conversation accordingly. So this, my level of conversation with Pete around this table isn't necessarily the level of conversation you're going to have, further afield or even with external people. So it really, it's understanding not just your own pain threshold as far as stress is concerned, or how you deal with stress. It's the level that you need to communicate with others, and the level they can accommodate as well as far as stress management is concerned. And again, that's this level of conversation stays here. It doesn't manifest itself elsewhere within the business because that wouldn't be the right thing to do, and you wouldn't achieve anything.
Well, it does. I just tell all my staff they've got to learn to manage you.
I mean, from my perspective, I mean, yes, we probably agree with this wholeheartedly. Can I speak? Wholeheartedly. I mean, for the first 3 or 4 weeks, when I came to the business, I was at some points a bit of a rabbit in the headlights. It was a shock to come into the pace of everything. But yes, you saw it straight away and reached out to me, and I think that's important, and and as us as a senior team as well, we need to see people who are working with us, making sure that we see the triggers for those stressful moments. But these guys saw it in me early doors, and it was very helpful.
We just bought you a beer. Which helped.
Don't mind 3.
Yeah.
What happens after 3?
I'm much better now.
Caroline, what goes on to us stays on to her, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
So let's talk a bit about the future of Rengen and where you guys see it going and what's coming down the pipeline. Yes, do you want to start off with that?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose starting point is we're looking to grow the company. That's the fundamental sort of forward direction. We've built the base. We've spent quite considerable time building a foundation and team and putting the right people in the right place. The infrastructure, the office, whatever else we've got underneath that, we've established that. So the obvious thing to do would be to build on that and use that scalable structure, if you like, to grow the company. For example, we've just bought 2 sites in London, so we're traditionally developed in the southwest, Bath and Bristol. We've moved out from Bath and Bristol, Exeter and Worcester, and now we've moved to London. So it's the obvious thing to do is to grow on what you planted, if you like, and we do have some good roots as far as the business is concerned. So it's develop. To do that, you need resource, you need finance, and you need sort of sites and opportunity, if you like. So funding, we've grown as far as John is concerned. John is coming in to deal with the finance side of things and support that particular area. We've already got a very strong network of funders. So as far as expanding the company from a commercial perspective, we're in a very good position. We've cultivated those relationships over quite some time, and the only real way you cultivate those relationships is by delivering product and paying back funding, which we've done numerous times.
Yeah.
So we've done that. As far as land is concerned, Darren is doing a very good job. He's seeking out projects, looking at other opportunities, growing the network as far as locations are concerned. So yeah, it's growing the business. It's looking at how we develop that. From a development perspective, it's very difficult, I think, to write a business plan. We have been opportunistic. We don't want to go and write a business plan and say this is the sort of product we're buying, and then we have to go and buy that type of product, because to a large extent that sort of forces you into something you might not necessarily do. And we are developers, as I said earlier. We are developers in every sense of the term, and it's opportunity driven, and it might not be in one specific sector, and it's in lots of different sectors. But we are looking to grow the portfolio. That's exactly what we're looking to do.
It's also been pleasing that because of the way we've grown the business, and it now does have a very wide and stable base. We've developed some very strategic joint venture partnerships with some tried and tested allies, and we trust very much. And in terms of where we go from here, I see some real opportunities to leverage up on those JV opportunities with the people that we've worked with now over a very long period of time, to take some of the abundance of projects which Darren is accessing and actually put them into some of those joint venture scenarios to drive the business forward. Where we ultimately get to, I suppose, remains to be seen. But if it's anything as if we see the growth that we've seen over the last 15 years, then it's going to be really, really interesting to see where we end up, because it's been quite stellar, I think, over that period.
Oh, look, we have to keep enjoying what we're doing as well. Fundamentally, there's no point putting yourself in a position where you've grown so much, you put yourself under so much pressure, you don't enjoy the journey anymore, and that's really important from my end. I wouldn't want everyone to get to the point where I didn't want to come to the office, I didn't want to have the communication that I have with each of the individuals on the table, and wider field, if you like, within the business. So I wouldn't want to get to the point where it's so big you've driven yourself out of a business you really enjoyed. So that has to be a consideration.
Well, it does, but the desire to drive the business forward is clearly apparent by the fact we now have a land director, a construction director, and an investment director. So we're not stopping here.
No.
Sounds
And
good.
I think actually, the more we can scale the business in terms of the projects that we're doing as well, will actually grow the business. So what we've traditionally done, we'll obviously now, I can see where we're moving forward, and we're doing larger schemes, and those larger schemes will obviously then bring in a bigger business and more growth into it.
Yeah, just to touch on what Pete said about the equity joint ventures. What we're looking to do is to broaden the breadth of that investment. Really exciting. We're going to create an investment memorandum, which is going to be ready in a few weeks. We're going to launch that at MyPIM, and we will be sitting down with lots of people to talk through that, and that really will create opportunities, and not just what Rengen has looked for in an investor. This could be wealth managers with their clients. It could be private individuals. It could be family trusts. There's all sorts of people that can actually invest and have access to this market that Rengen's has created.
Nice. Does anybody have anything else they want to talk about? No?
No, I think that's been a pretty far-reaching discussion.
Yeah, sounds good. So I think the idea of this going forward is this is our first episode, and on this season we want to bring in friends and colleagues and partners, and that includes funders and our construction teams and agents and our consultancy teams. So we're looking forward to having you guys back with some other people and having some further discussions.
Very good.